I earned my degree online at Arizona State University. I chose to get my degree at ASU because I knew that I'd get a quality education, they were recognized for excellence, and that I would be prepared for the workforce upon graduating. To be associated with ASU, both as a student and alum, it makes me extremely proud, and having experienced the program, I know now that I'm set up for success. Learn more at asuonline.asu.edu.
With so many options, why choose Arizona State University?
For me, the only online option was ASU because of the quality. Their faculty was really involved with their students and care about your personal journey. The dedication to my personal development from my professors, that's been extremely valuable to me.
Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
Welcome to Let's Talk Midlife Crisis. I'm Ashley.
And I'm Tracy. We're your go-to hosts for all things midlife, menopause, and moments of pure mayhem. And today we have with us Lynn Harris. Welcome, Lynn.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. We're so excited. So you're a comedian.
Well, I like to think of myself now as sort of a comedian enabler,
Okay.
because I still got it somewhere, but I started kind of phasing out really doing stand-up seriously when it just started to be clear that I wasn't able to stay up past 10. And
that's a real thing.
I used to host shows in Manhattan. I live in Brooklyn. I used to host shows in Manhattan that started at 10, and I was like, oh, no big deal.
Yeah.
So those, that ship has sailed. But what I do now is I founded a company called Gold Comedy that helps women and others succeed in their comedy careers and their creative side hustles, because comedy is hard for everyone, but it is still unfortunately harder for, if you're not a straight white dude. So,
right.
No shade to straight white dudes. Some of my best friends are straight white dudes, and they're very, very funny.
Right.
But just from a, societal standpoint, we need to work even harder for equality and equity and fairness and representation. Partly because comedies work just like any other work. So
right.
all the reasons for equity and equality apply there, and also because comedy matters, and who gets to tell jokes, who has the metaphorical might, who has that power also makes a difference. So we're just trying, and it also makes for better comedy. So I'm just trying to help individuals succeed, and then, in the aggregate, then we've just got better comedy and a different way of thinking about who has power.
Right.
Wow, I love that. I think it's great that you created a platform for people who struggle in any kind of business, honestly, but I'm sure, especially, I bet comedy is just cutthroat. I can only imagine.
Yeah.
I mean, cutthroat, sure, but it's more. I won't argue, but there's also a vibe of I don't want to say death by 1,000 cuts, but frustration by 1,000 cuts, or almost giving up because of 1,000 cuts by 1,000 cuts, because how many times am I going to have to be the only woman on a lineup? How many times am I going to be passed over for something because for, let's say, late night host, because apparently the only people who can be late night hosts are white dudes. We love them, but what's going on?
Right. Oh my gosh.
How many times am I yeah, they're all white dudes. So
you're making me think of Joan Rivers. You're making me think of Joan Rivers right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there have been a lot of terrific female hosts along the way, but all five, the ones that kind of are the anchors, so to speak, for years have been straight cis white dudes. And again, no shade to the individual guys. It's just kind of, when you look at it, it's like when you look at the whole picture of all of America's past presidents, you're like, what? it just looks funny, and not funny, haha.
Right.
It's just odd. And so, I didn't experience comedy I personally didn't experience comedy as cutthroat, partially because I wasn't very ambitious. I just wanted to do comedy as an end in itself. And I did, and I really enjoyed it, and it was part of my career. It was just that I wasn't trying to get someplace with it.
Right.
It was what I was doing.
Maybe a passion, yeah.
But yeah, and how many times, as with so many other jobs, is a woman passed over because she's not the favorite choice, or or for whatever, or because she wasn't on the Lampoon with you, or like whatever it is, right?
Right.
So it's you could describe it as cutthroat if that's what has been your experience, and for many people it has. You could also just describe it as like a grind, and we'll never know how many women kind of faded away because they were like, well, there aren't enough friendly clubs, or I just can't get into these writers' rooms. Let me also stipulate that a lot is changing and has changed. Like, a ton. It is in many, some things I'm like, I can't believe this hasn't changed. And other things I'm like, this is amazing. So it's both and both, but it matters. It really matters who, comedy, people talk about laughter is the best medicine, which, okay, sure, tied with the polio vaccine or whatever, but it also, there is consensus among, academics and experts that comedy is is an important cultural force. Mm-hmm. So that's why it also matters who gets to make it.
Wow. Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you're based out of New York. You were telling us that you are in New York. Love that. I've only been there once, and we were just actually talking about it, that I went during COVID. So I feel very fortunate because it was December of 2022. But the streets were empty. It was just a really great experience, and perhaps would be somewhat different now, either before or after. But yeah, I had a really, really great time there. So, and Ashley's son lives there.
Yeah, I've been several times. He actually lived in Brooklyn, as I said, and just moved to Manhattan about 8 months ago, I think.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it there. But I've done the touristy stuff, and now when I go, I get to do the local stuff with my son, which I love. Yeah. It's a very different experience.
Yeah. Yeah, the touristy stuff though is good for the right reasons as well. Because that's what the tourists go. Because there's some exceptions. I'm like, do we have to go to the same Chipotle and J. Crew that you have at home?
Right.
Could we go to Times Square, which is kind of kooky and you got to see it? But could we go to Times Square and also, Jackson Heights or the East Village or the Cloisters, or there's
trifecta.
I'm not
is
saying
that what it is?
Right.
The trifecta area.
Oh, Tribeca, yeah.
Tribeca,
And I'm not saying don't go to the M&M store. It's actually really fun. I'm not a snob. I'm just saying there's so much.
Yes.
Yeah.
There is.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated, because after doing the touristy stuff, it was like, it's very overwhelming. It's like sensory overload.
Yeah.
And while it was a fun trip and it was cool to see that stuff, I was just exhausted afterward. Yeah. Now when I go, I see these adorable neighborhoods and these amazing restaurants, and it's such a cool experience, and I feel rested, like I really had a fun vacation when I get back, So, so you're based out of New York. Mm-hmm. And do you act as kind of like a manager for comedians? Like what is your role exactly for them?
One day we may sort of spin off an agency model or a management model. That's not what we do right now. Really what we are right now is a kind of a formalized professional network. Like there's, like others, like, Chief, there, for female executives, but funny. Okay. Where by being a paid member, you have access to our saying, oh, who you should talk to, or you need a DP for your shoot. We'll introduce you, or or we hear of opportunities for gigs, whether they're, acting or production or, comedy publications that are looking for content, whatever it is. So we try to be as much of a broker and a resource as possible for those kinds of opportunities, just more informally, as like just making introductions and making contacts. We also have partnerships, both formal and informal, with companies that, and just like friends that really can help our members get their stuff made and seen. So, of course, you could have a great time coming to Gold and just taking some stand-up classes and having some fun. Like that works. But we also teach and support our members to, for example, create web series or pitch their projects. Let's say their own, pitch their web series or pitch their TV idea or pitch their film or podcast at a high level, like industry standard level.
Wow.
And we're able to, in some cases, when our members have either kind of on their own or with our resources, have fully created, actually in 2 cases, web series, we're able to, through our informal or formal partnerships, help them get seen. So, for example, a web series that we created in-house with one of our teams, we have teams that make digital content. We have a great web series called Late Bloomers that through our relationships is now streaming on Fox Soul, which is a sort of a streamer spinoff of the Fox Entertainment, the entertainment piece of Fox.
Yeah, like Fox Sports, Fox, yeah.
Right, and it's this new thing called, there are these new things called fast channels that are basically content, ad revenue driven or ad driven content. So we are able to kind of seize this moment of a little bit more, democratization is a strong word for it, but a little more access that exists kind of parallel to, like, let's call it this, the studio system.
Yes.
So our member, we have our stuff up on, again, it's on Fox Soul, and we didn't have to like go through formal pitches, and because we have partners who exist for the same reason to be a broker of content. That kind of outside the clunky system. And our members still own their content, so we're creator friendly as well. We just make deals about the revenue, but we don't own their content.
It sounds like you're a one-stop shop. You mentioned broker, but I'm like a one-stop shop for all of your needs. I used to think I was funny when I was younger. But now I don't think I've been
speaking of age, as one does on your podcast, I think one thing that's really interesting is that, yes, of course, we have a ton of recent college grads and 20-somethings and 30-somethings who are in it to win it, comedy-wise, and of course we do. But we also have a lot of, honestly, let's call them, like me, Gen Xers, who are, established in their careers. Maybe not like, they're not like, I'm quitting everything and running off to join the circus. They're established in their day jobs, but they've got a story they want to tell. They've got an idea for a TV show, whether it's something personal or just an idea that they can't get out of their head, maybe for a TV show. And we have a class that really skews a little bit, not entirely, but really is very kind of a magnet for, women in their 40s, 50s, whatever, who are just like, I got more time. I, maybe empty nest, whatever. I'm stable in my career, and I've got to pitch this show, and we also, and the same is true. We do have women who also just never got around to, like, they always wanted to, like, actually do some comedy, not just like on a lark, but like really do it. And of course, but
maybe had a family or whatever.
But being told to sit still and look pretty in school back in the 70s or whatever it was. And now they're like, oh, wait a minute, I could do this now. And we have one woman who is a retired high school art teacher who came to us because she was like, I'm so funny, and she started doing stand up with us, and now she like tours all over the South, and she writes for a sketch team, and like she's doing it.
That's so
because
amazing.
she's a grandmother.
Wow.
Yeah, she's a grandmother. She's retired. She does take care of. She has a son who has some needs that she takes care of, and she also watches her grandchildren. But like,
She's living her best
all that,
life.
she's flexible, and has the time and energy to really do it. Not just as a kind of like, I've always wanted to give this a whirl, but like really do it.
Yeah.
So, and she is, by the way, hilarious.
Wow.
Can you tell
like
us her
extra
name?
funny.
Yeah, can you tell us her name?
Yeah, her name is, okay, Rocky, I'm talking about you. Her name is Rocky Mateen. And she lives in North Carolina. And I talk about her all the time because she's a pistol. She's amazing. She's really, and now she's taking our solo show class. So she's developing an hour solo show.
Wow.
That, you can take on the road. So like,
That's so cool.
And she's like in her 60s.
That
So,
is so
I mean,
cool.
that just goes to show you it's never too late.
No.
I mean, if you
to live your best life, right?
You have these dreams when you're younger, and life, happens.
Right.
And if it's still this passion that's burning inside of you, it's not too late.
No, no.
It's so interesting. My brother, he works in Utah. He manages a property up in Park City, and these homes are like, they're people's second homes, but they're multi-million-dollar homes.
Right.
Like, and one of them is kind of used to rent out, whether it's for vacationers or filming or anything like that. Well, recently there's a movie out now, and I can't think of what it's called. I wish I could. It's the newest one that just came out with Steve Carell. It was filmed in this home. He wanted to go skiing, and they have a private slope for this community. And he wanted to go skiing, so they called my brother and said, will you take Steve skiing? And he's like, yeah. And so they skied all day, and then again the next day. Steve wanted to go again the next day. And he's like, he was going to school to be a lawyer. He was going to school to be a lawyer. And he was doing these little comedy gigs on the side just for fun. It was just a hobby. And now look at it.
Yeah.
Look at it.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's really cool that there's platforms like you have to help people accomplish that.
Right.
Because,
and to network and get the resources that they need, or provide, even open their eyes. Maybe they don't even know that they need it, right?
well, and they might not even know that they're actually that good. They might be doing it for fun, and they've discovered, like, I'm actually really good at this.
Yeah.
I can do something with this, That's amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
do you have, what is your most common, like, age or demographic? Is it mostly young
Probably-
people?
I'm going to say mostly 30s, 20s and 30s.
Okay.
20-ish, 30-ish. Mostly, youngish women who again have been doing this a little bit and, are really seeking out the resources that we provide. Most importantly, really the community that we provide. Not that they don't have their own communities in whatever town or city. Well, especially city, if they especially if they live in Boston or Chicago or LA. Of course, it's not like there's not a comedy scene there, but we're here 24/7. We are we are all over the map. All in the U.S. in a couple of and even Europe.
Wow.
And it's just it's a different kind of and larger community that people can rely on, which communities are, first of all, the way you survive any sort of get through any sort of tough job.
Yes.
I was lucky enough when I was doing comedy to find just the nicest friends in the world, and we helped each other out, and we booked each other, and we worked,
Right.
that was our crew, and to be able to kind of do that on steroids is great. And also there's so many studies about how you learn better in community, and of course, and that's one reason that the way we're designed is that you actually pay one annual fee as opposed to paying class by class. There's some exceptions, but basically that's how it works. So that underscores the idea that you join for a year and more. I mean, people renew, of course, but
to take advantage, and you can take advantage of whatever you feel is interesting to you. Yeah, at that
you
time.
build your path, taking the stuff that you need. Like we have a medical doctor who's developing a medical game show, and she is now taking our stand-up class because she's accustomed to like public speaking, but
Right.
she wants to be able to kind of build the skills to pitch herself as the co-host of the show. So people just kind of go through, or the people who do our solo show classes are like, oh, right, I got to promote my show, or oh, I got to go to the Fringe Festival, and we have tons of on-demand content because every time we do a workshop, we record it, we save it, and so it becomes on-demand content, so that people can just be like, well, I got to watch all the stuff, I got to binge watch all the stuff about promoting my show and going to Edinburgh, going to whatever Fringe Festival. So it's all there, and every day there's more stuff.
Wow.
And people can sort of choose their adventure based on what their goals are.
That is so amazing. I had no idea that this is available to people.
It's really cool. And, I think just like any career, you seek ways to improve yourself and to grow and to promote or whatever it might be. I think anything in like show business, like comedy, anything like that, it's gotta be so challenging. There are so many people trying to get their break and find their way.
Right.
And like you said, having a community is just huge.
Yeah.
I mean, and because not only does it provide you with resources, but it also helps you with your confidence and your, feeling part of something and like you belong, your place,
Well, and also words to live by. It's not always what you know, is who you know.
Yeah.
Seriously, like it's
true.
a big thing.
Unfortunately, it's true.
It's an old saying for a reason, because networking and communities and those types of things, even in a world, in the digital age that we're in, it all goes back to the basics, right? So, but I can't imagine standing up there to be a comedian. I just couldn't imagine. It's one thing to stand and present, or public speaking and those types of things, but the comedian aspect of stand-up comedy would be terrifying to me.
It would be intimidating. Yes. Like, you gotta make these people laugh.
I understand that. I was gonna say the other benefit of being a certain age and having just been around for a long time in and near the comedy business is that when you were saying it's Tracy, it's who you know. I just know so many people, and just because I have been doing some version of this since the 80s, right? So like, and I tend to collect people that I like, and I tend to keep in touch, I tend to keep relationships, and so that also has been, something that that's a strength that I can bring to this community, so that Rachel Dratch from SNL is one of our advisors because and Janine Garofalo appeared in one of our sketches because I knew her from
and Margaret Cho, right? Margaret Cho is involved.
That was because one of our members knew her. So actually no, I take it back. I mean that was that, but I also had worked with her in another comedy related job like 5 years ago. So I was hi, I'm the one from the Humana. Like, so it was another moment of connectedness. So like,
and now,
again,
I know you.
Now,
So now I know you. I'm like, oh, Lynn Harris. Oh my gosh, you have a dream to be a comedian? I'm going to hook you up with Lynn Harris. Right? Like, it's just funny. It's a thing. It's a real thing.
It is. Yeah, very much.
Yeah, and it's one of the things that I think, when you ask people, well, what do you appreciate about being older, or what do you, and it's just like you have really sort of accumulated not just wisdom, but people, and not like in a transactional way,
right?
Just different nodes of networks that are kind of interconnected, like from the job you had 10 years ago, but you're still in touch with one, and they also know the one, and you feel really like you belong not just in one node but in many nodes, and it's something you can use to help other people. It's something that gives you a sense of groundedness, and it's just like that's one of, if you ask me what my favorite thing about like being for it, that's it's feeling that I've like kind of invested well in wonderful people,
relationships. I grew up in Utah and I moved to
Which
Arizona.
is funny in itself.
I know,
That's a whole comedy show right there.
But I moved to Arizona in my early 20s, and I had transferred with the company I was working for, but I took a new position. And the guy that I worked for, I mean, we're talking over 25 years ago, we still talk. He lives in Boulder, Colorado.
Yeah.
We stay in touch.
Yeah.
He's a great guy, a great friend, but he's like really up there in, our trade. He's done very well for himself. He's a great connection as far as, professional, but he's also, like I said, a very good friend. And I have a lot of those. I'm with you. I like to think, I'm at the point in my life where I've really discovered the things that are very important to me and what I value, and a lot of that is relationships that I have that are meaningful
100%.
and learning which ones aren't, and not dealing with those anymore.
Yeah.
Not that they're bad people, but just that you can pick and choose where you want to invest your limited
time.
Basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's why I like social media, because it does enable you to kind of keep generally know how someone's doing, because otherwise it would be impossible. I can't remember who all's kids are graduated from college, but then I see it on Facebook and I'm able to be like, oh my god,
Yeah.
Well, isn't it funny to think, like, before social media, like, you literally had to catch up with everybody over the phone.
Yeah.
Like, that was
Or letters. Letters were a thing too, right? You would write letters.
Emails.
Oh my god.
Okay, am I dating myself?
I don't pass notes in school anymore.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is I can hardly write anymore. They don't learn cursive, but also for me to actually handwrite something, like my penmanship is crazy because who writes anymore?
Yeah.
It's just a whole different world that we live in now.
It really is.
Yeah. But love comedy, and I mentioned Joan Rivers before because she is like, that woman got me through some tough times, and when she reinvented herself, before she passed, because she was snubbed out of the industry because of men, right? We were talking about in all of the late night talk show hosts, she would substitute but never give her any consideration.
Right.
And then they ended up snubbing her out, her whole story. But then she came back and, oh my gosh, I can't tell you.
She had
Fashion
a show with
Police.
her daughter.
Well, she did Fashion Police. She's done a bunch of things.
Right.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. But she was still old school. Like, she put it out there, right? Like, she was next level. But honestly, she got me through some tough times because, of course, with comedy and laughter comes the endorphins that go with it. And it's a healing property. But oh my God, I miss her so much. I do. But luckily for social media, like you just mentioned, I can still catch her glimpses. And there was something that came up, speaking of her daughter as well, that there was an honor that was being given to Joan Rivers, right? And so Melissa Rivers, her daughter, was rummaging through papers to find old jokes and stuff, which are, I believe, now in New York in a museum. But she found a letter that Joan Rivers wrote saying, if you're reading this right now, I am dead. And somebody is finally honoring me. But it was hilarious. It was hilarious.
God bless her.
So, yeah, I don't know. We need more people like that. And I know she could be maybe perceived as edgy, whatever, but
I think that's the best.
She's my favorite of all time, I would have to say. Yeah.
And we also just lost Ruth Buzzy, who was who I loved and grew up watching on Laugh-In, and until the last minute, her Twitter game was very strong.
Oh, no kidding! I've never been on Twitter.
She was. I think she was like reaching new audiences,
Yes.
through Twitter. So
Wow. Wow, that's awesome.
She was another one of the greats.
So if someone, one of our listeners would like to connect, where would you, and of course we'll include those links in our show notes, but where would someone be able to connect with you and find out more information? And also, sorry, two-part question, is it available to those outside of the New York area?
It's where our headquarters is online, so we certainly have people get together and do projects who, having met through us or who join kind of together from their city,
Okay.
or like recruit friends from their city, whatever. But the main, like our hub, is a private online platform, which is just there for you 24/7, and it's where all of our classes every class has its own kind of space with the syllabus and the calendar, and there's a feed, kind of like Facebook, but no
Right.
Mark Zuckerberg, and and no bro vibes, and so it's that's the jumping off point for everything, and so yeah, we don't have a physical space, because I will not be paying rent in New York anytime soon for that
goodness.
kind of thing.
Yeah, no brick and
also,
mortar.
we don't need it. We do shows and activities in real life, but we don't need it as far as the headquarters goes. So yeah, we have people from all over, certainly from the big comedy cities, but also certainly not from the big comedy cities, because that's why they seek us out.
Right.
And we do have two real anchors of our community are from Utah. So even Utah is represented.
Wow,
So
I love that.
That's awesome.
That's all.
I can see how that could be a possibility. Like I said, I think that's a whole whole skit in itself,
It's
right?
Absolutely.
I'm from
Absolutely.
Utah, and then wow,
Oh, the
just
questions
keeps
I
rolling.
get. The
Yeah.
questions I get. It is comical.
Yeah. Well,
But yeah, they can find everything that we have at goldcomedy.com. That's or on Instagram at goldcomedy.
Okay,
GOLD.
perfect.
So yeah, easy peasy.
Thank you so much. And all of that information will be in our show notes, and linked to our social channels as well. But thank you so much, Lynn, for joining us today. It's really been a pleasure to learn more about it and just to speak to you and understand what's happening right now with a lot of individuals, like you mentioned, that are, later in life are just discovering it.
Yeah, if you think you're funny, reach out to Lynn.
I talked to someone else who has teenage kids. She does something unrelated to comedy by day, and she developed a script in one of our end of pitch in our pitching class. She wound up getting representation even during the writer's strike, because she's in Canada.
Oh.
So, and she was able, and so now her show is being shopped in Canada. And she's a grown up like us, so and she just was like, I got to do this. She had this idea and she's making it happen.
Oh, I love that.
I love that too. I love that.
Shout out to Billy. Yep.
Yes. Awesome.
Way to go, Billy.
Way to go, Billy.
Well, that wraps it up for today. Thanks for joining us on Let's Talk Midlife Crisis. We hope you got some laughs, a little inspiration, and maybe a few new ideas.
If you loved today's episode, hit that subscribe button so you'll never miss an episode. And hey, share the love. Send this episode to a friend who could use a good laugh and some midlife wisdom.
Connect with us on social media at Let's Talk Midlife Crisis and let us know what's on your mind. We love hearing from you.